All right. Well, thank you everyone for joining us for our second part of the webinar on Agile Mining Supply Chains in Challenging Times. We are here today to answer all of the questions that have been submitted during the first part of the session that we held in June a couple of weeks ago. I have with me again our panelists, the same panelists that joined us for session one. So we have Ziri Genek, who's the principal and founder of Bridge. We have Jacques Erasmus, who's the SVP for Integrated Services at Samania Stillwater, and Victoria Stephen, who is the CEO of Bahn Holding. So we're going to get into the questions right away. And I think we'll start with the questions that were submitted to people in general. I'm going to stop sharing my screen so we can see our panelists in a larger picture. So what I'll start with is actually a question that was submitted by our executive director who joined us for the first part of this session. And he had asked that a question around COVID. He asked, in general, during this COVID era, have you stayed with existing suppliers or investigated new ones and switched or added? This is a general question, and for some of you, you might be able to refer to this not from your own perspective, but what from your clients. So it's really around, how much has your network changed? Who would like to go first?
I'll start. Good morning, everybody. Good afternoon. Claudia, thank you for the question. So absolutely, we've started, or we being my clients, have had to expand and explore new opportunities, much more locally, and also discover suppliers that we could actually help create. So in some circumstances, the suppliers weren't there for the complete product, but we were able to, through the expertise of the people on the operations, to say, well, if you break down this particular piece, you can actually find suppliers locally. So what we found was in expanding our network, but locally, because trade issues were making it unable for our clients to get in a timely manner what they needed. We also discovered a huge amount of potential that we didn't even know existed, that was local and that could be up-tooled, so to speak, and help to participate. And they even came up with great ideas. So, and we're able to fix certain parts of the operations that were a concern. So we learned more about our supply chain, as I called it earlier, excuse me, my presentation, I would say downward. So we got a better understanding of the whole supply chain from its very beginning up to delivery to the plant. And then we were able to look around us and go, this is how we could actually address this issue. So not only new network, new suppliers, but a completely different way of also considering the potential, which then went into developing new relationships with our communities and seeing situations or possibilities we had not even considered before. So we see it as a negative positive, I guess, is probably a good way of putting it.
All right. Well, thank you. Victoria, Jacques, would you like to add anything to that?
Sure. I can. Sorry, Jacques. I can expand a little bit on that from a technology perspective. So, technology allows us to expand the world we perceive, so that we can actually see what's out there, giving us more options to choose from and more information to make proactive decisions. So I think when technology creates a platform, a level playing field for all suppliers, you actually encourage them to innovate, to be creative in how they design their products and services, and you also allow them to keep that competitive edge, which I think is really important. And also the opportunity to keep evolving their product and services to accommodate this rapidly shifting market that we see. I think technology is bringing the consumer choice, if I could put it in that perspective, and the flexibility to the industrial market. For example, I'm going to use a fun example. Consumer choice gives us the perfect shade of red lipstick for a wedding that I'm attending on the weekend at a really good price, and also delivered within a time that really suits me. I think that kind of flexibility of choice and availability is now being offered to the industrial market through technology solutions. And COVID has just been the mind shift needed for the industrial markets to realize that embracing technology solutions allows us to have what we want when we want it.
Interesting, thank you. I like that parallel that you drew there with, what we see as consumers and customers, and how that's now expanding into the corporate world. Really interesting. Thank you, Jacques.
No problem.
Yeah, I think obviously being in the supply chain stuff. So obviously there were new suppliers. We obviously needed new materials like kitting out isolation facilities or quarantine facilities, and in a very short space of time. So the supply chain obviously had to go source outside of our traditional clients. And obviously then we also looked at where we were buying stuff which wasn't available in South Africa. So Siri, you made the comment, a lot of new local guys popped out of the woodwork, absolutely, and we support those as far as we possibly can. But then some of the stuff in quantum and volumes they just can't give us. And it's obviously it's a time demand type scenario. So it's just a current supplier can't supply you, then you need to go find somebody else. And the supply chain guys got very good was becoming telemarketers.
Yes.
So we had a lot of clients phoning us, but or some new suppliers phoning us every day. Your mailbox had hundreds and hundreds of, we got this, do you need this type things, and working through those, and some of them were helpful. Others we didn't actually have a need for, but it's good to put them in the drawer, if you want to call it that. And then obviously the guys found out exactly where we previously just had one supplier and we used to go to them. We then find out there's actually 5 other sort of people in the chain, because what also happened is in some cases they couldn't get raw materials, and in some cases we actually sourced the raw materials for suppliers to be able to manufacture stuff. And similarly on the logistics, we chartered planes and stuff to fly in raw materials, not for us, but for those suppliers, so they could then manufacture and obviously supply to us. So, and it's really that understanding, which I think COVID and Victoria, to your point, is understanding and sharing of information around how we actually work collaborative together to get ultimately to a supply which works.
Great, thank you. Yeah, that's, I think, also a really interesting point is, even for the suppliers that you keep, your relationship just changes. We talked about this in part 1 of the session, and said, you have to try to be more agile and more collaborative in your approach. And I actually have the next question that really is very connected to this. So I'll ask that to the group, and please just step forward and start answering as you wish. So this question was, looking into the future, let's say 5 years from now, when the pandemic is behind us, hopefully, do we think that procurement professionals will still be thinking about this, resilience that we're now trying to build into our supply chains? Or are we going to go back into this efficiency and cost-saving mode that we were in before?
Yes to both. Oh, sorry, go ahead, Jack.
So yes, I think those were never off the table. So I can share examples where we went to all our suppliers and renegotiated our payment terms, not shorter but longer, and we got a great response. That just shows that it's counterintuitive what people would think out there. So that happened. Similarly, I think you would have changed the way you procure, both from a technology and from a collaboration going forward, and it's a step change event. So I don't think that would ever we would ever go back. But would we still want the best quality at the best price? Absolutely. I'm not going to buy something which is I can get somewhere else at a better price at the same quality. It just doesn't make economic sense. So I don't think those have gone off the table. We still buy good quality stuff. In some cases, the prices are down from what they previously were, and we get better terms. So I don't see, but it's working with that supplier and understanding where they are and where we are. Yes. I think there's a lot more discussion around this stuff.
Yeah, that's I think that's a really good point. We talked about this also in our last session about how I think it was always seen as mutually exclusive. We're either resilient and agile, or we're efficient and saving costs. But and what you just outlined was we can do both. Victoria or Siri, would you like to share any of your thoughts on the question?
Yeah, no, I mean, along Jacques' comment, I think the two new words in supply chain is creativity and partnership. So totally agree with Jacques. And first of all, to the comment, will COVID go away? To be honest, 5 years, probably not. I mean, I think COVID has just shifted everything. And every day when we watch the news, we hear new developments. So I don't know that we're going to go back to whatever was before, which is a good thing. Moving forward, creativity and partnerships help us now achieve best price, best time, but we now have alternative solutions. And I think what we've done is that we've kicked, and I'll say this with a lot of respect for the procurement teams, because I've worked in them with BHP, with Rio, but also with clients, is that it's kicked them a bit in the pants, where we used to do the same things the same ways for a very long time. We now see a lot more openness to interfacing with our suppliers. They've become partners. Do we bring payment terms up, down? How does it work, as Jacques said? Can we find you what you're looking for so together we can build? So we're building in a cooperative world. And I think this vulnerability that COVID has created has created this opportunity to live in a much more collaborative, agile, resilient, more caring, if you would, business world, which is a good thing. And with the help of technology, like Victoria's been telling us about, it's also, even though we're looking locally, expanded, I believe, our opportunities. So some thoughts there.
Thank you, Siri. Victoria, did you want to, sorry, Jacques, did you want to quickly make a comment on what Siri was saying?
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I do appreciate your comment about being kicked in the pants. We had to be very smart around how some of the stuff gets done, and some very tough discussions to get stuff to where we actually needed, especially on the PPE side and so forth. That was quite a challenge, and PCR tests and the like. That was because the whole world's buying it. So suddenly when you ring up a company, they don't even want to talk to you. You get your CEO involved to open the door, never mind just having a discussion. So those are the type of things which challenge it. But what I think is as important is also what you are buying is changing. So yeah. We're now buying technology platforms, which we spoke to some of these companies in December, January. Two things which strike me talking about go back. Previously, they told us it would take a year to implement this. We are implementing some of the stuff now in 6 weeks.
Yeah.
Without having to see any of our people. So this was across the table. We worked together in one room. Now the stuff is getting done virtually, and it takes a fraction of the time and a fraction of the cost, which obviously makes a lot of sense to be doing it. So that's the other point, which I think is this actually invest in technology now. A lot of companies defer their stuff. Our view is now is the best time to actually do it.
Yeah, great, thank you. And I think I agree, and I'm sure Victoria would agree with that too. It's a nice lead-in.
100%. Yeah. So I mean, I agree with everything that's been said. Change is inherently connected to and as a result of circumstance. It's experiencing challenges, discomfort, and the need to improve. So, I mean, even the cost of living is increasing, you know, and the need to prevent the margin erosion across mining companies is always a factor in the life cycle of a commodity business. So, you know, mining companies are seeing the cost of ESG requirements increasing. You know, so I believe the emphasis on keeping operational costs as low down on the cost curve will be a priority for more than the next 5 years. You know, as a result, efficiency, resilience, or savings, or a combination of all of them will still be major factors. So, yeah.
Great, thank you. All right, we'll move to the next question. So the next question is around, again, this idea of collaboration that we explored in our last session in quite some detail, you know, sharing information more openly, mining companies as peers working together, sharing information plus their networks. And so when we then look at that idea of information being shared more openly and collaboration happening on a larger scale, how do we then avoid collusion, or how do we, you know, make sure that this happens in a way that I guess is true to the nature of what collaboration really is meant to do?
I think talked about it will never be collaboration to the detriment of any law. What I think collaboration means, use of technology. So typically you put it on a bid or buy type platform, and we're really looking very hard at that type of scenarios, electronic bids rather than normal bids. So that all helps us in our own controlled environments, because obviously that's stuff we are very cognizant of and obviously want to steer clear of. So I think you can actually use technology to do that much quicker, and also share information about when can you actually deliver, what is available, and what would we be able to purchase. Where previously you place an order and it would take a week for the company to get back to you to say, yes, we actually have it or not. And if then obviously the answer is no, then you have to go find someone else. So that's that instantaneous sharing of information around what is available, what is the best price. The other thing we are looking at is almost having electronic bids every month for certain of our, sort of call it bread and butter stuff. So it's not when we get a request from our engineering or production guys to say, go buy it. It is, we know what it is, using predictive analytics and the like to really try and nail that down, and also secure a year contract, for instance, for supply. And then it just becomes when you deliver it, not necessarily you have it or not. Because obviously one of the big things which the, maybe not say all companies, but we're looking at virtual warehousing and those type of things.
Yeah, exactly.
Which obviously is key to us, and we're really a long way down that road. So we've done the hard work, and some of it started before COVID. What COVID just made it easier is to sell it, because before that people looked at you funny when you made these type of brought these ideas to the table. Now everybody accepts it and just gets it done. So that's the real challenge. So it's using technology in that collaboration and sharing and open platforms and saying, this is our need, bid for it on either once off or in a contract scenario.
Great, thank you. Victoria, maybe from your perspective, I mean, you're already working on this collaboration with the new marketplace, as you called it in our last session, that your technology can create. Have you seen that there's more collusion, or collusion sounds negative and very deliberate, but have you seen that the pricing on the supplier side has become more similar across the board? Has that really happened? Is that something we're seeing in reality?
It's a good question. Yeah, so I mean, look, from a technology perspective, transparency is key, and that's what technology brings to the table. We're offered the opportunity to measure, track, control, manage, report on all activities, leaving collusion and corruption with absolutely no place to hide. So I don't think I can put it in any better a statement than as simply as that. Technology is a driver to actually stop that kind of market manipulation, if I could put it that way. And you get by using technology, you are empowered to stop that kind of thing.
Yeah, thank you. Great. Siri, did you want to add anything?
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I think the only thing I would add is that I think in our mining industry, one of the things that COVID is helping us to do is to stop this concern around this fear of collusion. I mean, equipment is equipment is equipment, as Jacques said, and Victoria. We need to access a pump is a pump is a pump. It doesn't affect the process or the depth of our asset or our strategies as organizations. And I think the mining industry has a lot to give to each other to build. And this is an incredible opportunity to help the mining industry. So a bit of a plug for the mining industry to rebrand itself as a cooperative and a collaborative environment, as opposed to pitting one organization against the other. So as we see, specifically in the ESG space, where we're sharing standards and we're learning what's better for the industry, whether it's tailings, or we're also looking how ESG as an activity can really help supply chains globally, but also locally. So repeating very much what we said in the first part and again here. So I think we need to walk away or ban a little bit, like that kick in the pants, stop thinking about collusion, and the competition will be there anyway, but price of gold is price of gold or silver or nickel. So in the areas that we can cooperate and collaborate for a better ecosystem, I think that's why I think COVID is going to take us forward positively, rather than falling back into this sort of dark world where my pump is better than yours. And thanks very much to the technology Victoria's thinking about. So no more collusion.
Great, thank
Maybe
you.
just a
Go
final
ahead.
comment on that. I mean, obviously, you test for quality and you buy a certain standard pump which you would use. So I don't think there's an issue around that. Similarly, price, it will always be competitive. There will be a competitive bid, and whoever's the most competitive. But that is not the only criteria. One of the criteria is you're also looking at obviously security of supply and then speed of supply. So I think what you would find, a lot of the supply chain processes are shortened. So where it used to take 3 months to secure a certain item, that now happens in days, if not hours. And that's obviously a competitive advantage as well, because the quicker we can get it to our mine site and actually use it, the quicker or the better it is for us. So that's, I think, the other bit around when we talk about technology. It's really which levers can you pull? Price can only be so competitive. Quality is, you have certain norms and standards which you use, which obviously your mine engineers and safety signs off, so you can't jeopardize any of those. So the only other lever you can pull is speed to delivery. And that is something which never got any focus.
Yep.
And we believe that is a huge competitive advantage, is using that, and technology is a large part of that.
Yeah, great comment. I think that's a really important piece that we can't forget about, is that it's not all about price. That's the point, right? That's what we're seeing right now is that we need to have relationships. We need to have that reliability. We need to have the ability to flex where possible. So I think that's an important point. I'm going to shift a little bit now. I have two questions, and they're kind of two sides of the same coin. And I think they're particularly interesting for Jacques and Victoria. So I'm going to paraphrase the questions that we got there. So when we're looking at these technology solutions like the marketplace that Victoria has talked about, and this online collaboration in whatever different shapes it may take, what from a mining company perspective, what are the kind of key wants needs that the mining companies would like to see in something like this? What are the kind of activities or goods and services that they would consider, widening the net to when applying this technology? I'll leave it there, and then I'll flip the question to Victoria after.
Say that again.
It's a long question.
Claudia, I'm glad I get to go first. No, for us, it's really thinking about it and saying, okay, so when you go into this collaboration, so obviously, what do you want? And I think it leads to very much to the last answer is around, we're obviously looking for three things. We're looking for security of supply, quality, price, and then speed. And when you look in technology and saying, how do we share that type of thing? So share with us when is the delivery gonna take place? What do you actually need? And also up in your supply chain, on who are you dependent to? Obviously, if you let's just use the example, we're buying manufactured pieces of equipment. So there's obviously raw materials which that company needs, or other pieces of equipment which they source from their suppliers. And we don't really want to get into those suppliers because we don't want to go buy from them. But what we need to understand is how secure is your supply? So if we call upon you, can you deliver? Because otherwise that will be a problem for us, because we are shortening our time. So our margin of error is getting less and less and less. And if you can't deliver, then obviously I have a problem, because then my production guys will be right on top of me, because operations may stop at a worst case scenario. And that's obviously important for us. So we need to understand, what does your raw material look like? What does your inventory look like? And what time frames can we draw on to get the stuff delivered to us?
Right. And sort of the second part of the question was around what kind of activities, goods and services do you see this technology being able to expand into from your perspective? What are the things that currently aren't really happening on this, platform that you think, would be a great addition?
I think it's still new, so people are still learning how to really, and some of my peers are very good at it, and some are pretty much in the same boat where we are. So I think it's like COVID. People are still experimenting with what really will work, and so I think everything is open to the platform. And I think what you'll do is what we're doing is we're categorizing: are we buying services specifically? Are we buying raw materials or consumables, or are we buying machinery? And previously, sort of supply chain, although we had that distinct designated between commodities, we didn't really focus on so much the way we procure. We always procured the same way, although we procure different services. So what we're now saying is engaging with a service company looks very different than procuring with OME, for instance. And that's part of where the technology bits comes in as well.
Great, thank you. Victoria, from your perspective, have you heard from the users, the supplier users of this, online marketplace, in terms of what they're looking for, but also what it takes for them to be able to participate?
So I'd actually like to just tell a little bit of a story to actually answer this question. So, obviously Infuse, that's the technology solution that we're providing. It solves a number of challenges we're currently experiencing as we see the world rapidly changing as a result of COVID. So in response to COVID, the mining industry has been presented with new regulations with ridiculous safety requirements. This is a huge pressure that the mining companies now have to deal with. Social distancing, if someone is tested positive, there are all sorts of measures required to cope with that. And this obviously falls back onto the suppliers, because, you know, suppliers, emerging suppliers looking to generate sales in the current market conditions. You know, the days of where a salesperson cold calls at the mine to demo and sell equipment, those days are long gone. You know, mines are forced to shut their borders of their operations to non-essential personnel for safety reasons, obviously, you know, as a result of COVID. And this creates a massive gap in sales interactions. I mean, Jacques mentioned it earlier about the calls and the emails. So, you know, it creates a massive gap in the sales interaction, the visibility, the connectivity and collaboration between mining operators and all possible areas of the supply chain. So Infuse is uniquely positioned as it enters the market in the aftermath of a changing world, you know, due to COVID. It's a safe space for mining operators to mining operators or buyers to showcase their material requirements, and for suppliers of all shapes and sizes to showcase what they can offer based on merit. You know, and this allows the stigma of hardcore cold selling or cold calling to fall away, and for a more service-centric environment to emerge. You know, Infuse bridges the gap of connectivity between different types and levels of systems capability, which I think is something that's a massive challenge on a global scale when it comes to trying to connect, you know, different organizations. It creates a secure space where seamless interaction and collaboration is possible, regardless of the level of sophistication of the current systems or the data inconsistencies, because that's also a massive challenge around, you know, connectivity. So, you know, we do all the sourcing work for the buyer upfront by automatically matching all potential suppliers to the buyer's requirements. You know, as a result, the buyers have all the information on hand to make proactive decisions and can base those decisions purely on finding options that meet their operational needs. You know, we're creating a virtual one-stop shop where buyers and sellers can come together effortlessly. We also have, which I think is pretty cool, we have an inclusive rating system where buyers can rate suppliers and suppliers can rate buyers, much like an Uber feel. You know, and this encourages a fair win-win business environment for all, you know, and it also elevates, you know, companies who are able to provide that personal touch, you know, service. It's not always about price, it's about quality, like Jacques mentioned, and also being able to get the product as quickly to site as you know, as possible. So that's really what we bring to the market as a unique solution.
Great, thank you. All right, I think go ahead.
Just to add to that, I mean, what we have seen is there's obviously for COVID and for various reasons, you obviously want to restrict people coming to your mine sites. But what we found is people get creative as well, and that's the exciting bit about this. So it's not just what are the mining companies doing. It's some of the companies did some fantastic. They have visual demonstrations. They've really built some interactive, especially if it's equipment, those type of things, which you visually can they can talk you through a call. And I ultimately think that's where it will end up anyway. You talk about the mindset of change, where you traditionally go to the company and go sit in supply chain and explain the stuff to them. And this is hardcore technical equipment, but they've put up little demos. They've got really good videos, 3D stuff, which then you can look at it and say, you know what, you think conceptually that can actually work. Send us a sample and we'll use it for a month or two and see if it works as explained. And obviously that's where we're going. So I think that is there. And then obviously maybe just the last point on sourcing, obviously always important is supporting your local communities around that. So that's also a big drive for us.
Great, yeah, great comments, Jacques. Thank you. I think I have two more questions, and the one was posed directly to Jacques, and then the last one is for Siri, but also I'll open that one up to the panel. So let's go with the one that was specific for Jacques first. And this question was around unplanned maintenance and unplanned activities. So how would you deal with that before COVID, and what's the change? What are you seeing now during COVID, and what do you expect then in the future? So it's a three-part question. What did you do currently, and how you see that change in the future when it comes to these unplanned things and unplanned supplies that that you need?
Yeah, and mostly those would go on pumps and stuff like that, which breaks down. And we used to have pretty good surveillance of when pumps and so forth would break, but you always have an unforeseen. And really, the way we're going there is really predictive analytics. So what we're trying to really understand is what a pump breaks down, and the machine learns for us. So the trick is to actually, and I'll give you an example in our workshops. We now have, previously the vehicle we came in, and then we ordered the parts. Now we're sort of tracking each vehicle, so it's like telling you what service it needs. So 2-3 weeks before it, our system would say this vehicle is close to, it's say 100,000 rands or 100 kilometer service, and it would need new oil, filters, whatever the case might be. So we already order those before the vehicle actually comes in for service. And similarly on the pumps and so forth, because what we don't want to do is hold huge stockpiles to obviously have the unplanned maintenance. So really investing heavily in predictive analytics, actually per sort of category, and we use a number of service suppliers to help us with that. And that's still work in progress, but yeah, the result so far is looking really cool.
Great, thanks. All right, so that brings us to our last question. And as I mentioned, it was specifically posed to Siri, but I think it is a good question to end on. So I will open that up to Siri first and then the rest of the panel. So Siri, in our last session, you talked about vertical integration. You talked about seeing integration happening on a larger scale. And the question now that was posed is around how much of that integration do you think is needed, and how long do you think we will see this, you know, if we call it a trend, still happening?
Thanks, Claudia. So I don't know, I'm not sure I'm clear on what the question meant by how much. I think COVID has definitely got us moving towards vertical integration more and more. I mean, beyond the obvious ones that everybody knows about, whether it's Tesla, or you're seeing almost every day manufacturing companies partnering with Glencore or Rio, and even in the oil and gas. I mean, if we look at Canada and our oil sands, which are also deemed mining, you're seeing relationships being built upstream and downstream. And so how does that work? How does that contribute, for example, to renewable energy? So if as batteries increase for storage for different kinds of renewable energy, companies want to make sure they have access to zinc or nickel or lithium or any number of those EMs on the periodic table. And I think it's going increasingly. And so we've talked a lot about downstream, but we now need, as companies, to better understand where we, as an organization, we're part of a supply chain as well. So I can only see that as growing and increasing. And as our technology develops, beyond everything we're using today, for example, whether it's Apple, you're seeing Gates and Bezos looking at cobalt in Canada all of a sudden. That was in yesterday's media. So I think it will be increasing. How much is needed, I'm again not clear on what that means, but I think it goes to a socioeconomic ecosystem. It goes to something we had discussed earlier in the first part, where mining is no longer just mining, pulling something out of the ground and selling it. It is now part of a bigger piece. So to our communities, it's bringing our supply chains closer to us. We have a better understanding of what's around us. We get better prices. We get quicker times. We deal away with concerns around collusion. We're working on transparency and trust. And we're now, as we see our economy recovering, we're seeing mining contributing to that wheel, so to speak. So I think it's ongoing. It will not stop. It's exciting. And again, it's my plug for the industry is that now mining can actually shine and be very proud of its contribution in so many ways. So a few of my thoughts on the question.
Great, thank you, Siri. Thanks. That's it's a really great way of summarizing a lot of what we've already talked about as well. So thank you for that, Jacques, Victoria. I'll expand or extend this question to both of you as well in terms of your thoughts maybe around integration, but also looking into the futures. What will all of this look like, and any last thoughts that you might want to share? Maybe we'll go with Victoria first.
Sure. I mean, so as an innovative technology company, I'm pretty ambitious. So where I see this going eventually is literally all equipment and stock or parts and spares will be held in a virtual world. It will be everywhere and nowhere at the same time. So for us, our intention is to integrate as far into this ecosystem as we possibly can, so that we can start to give manufacturers the right information to make sure that when that part comes off a conveyor belt, it's shipped, it's already allocated to where it needs to go. So the days of parts and equipment sitting around in massive factories waiting to be used, our intention is to try and sort of minimize that as much as possible, and eventually the idea and the ambition is to do away with that everything works so well together that it comes straight off the belt, it goes off to where it needs to go to, it arrives ahead of time. There's always the ability to maneuver stock from one place to the other. We want to give our OEMs the opportunity that if they can see excess items on one of their mining operations or at one of the mines, and someone needs it urgently and they have no other option, that they can maneuver their stock like on a chessboard. That's really what we're trying to achieve through our and this is not something that's just going to happen overnight, obviously. I mean, this is the key here is collaboration and working together to achieve this. But that's really what we would like to try and achieve as a technology solution coming into the industry.
Thank you. Thanks. Great. Jacques, famous last words.
I think invest in technology. It's both the mining companies are moving that way, or I think most are thinking that way. And suppliers can do the same. As I said, the example I use, some of the guys giving us demos, we use it on an app where they actually show you virtually what it does. Those are all things which just helps you sell your product. So and especially where we are now, it's I think less and less you're going to have face-to-face, and definitely in the foreseeable future, probably depending on how long it takes to get a cure. It's 3 months, 6 months, 18 months, nobody knows. But you have to continue your business, and I would say invest in those technologies, investigate them, think about them, and be smart how you use them.
Great, thank you. That's a great way to finish. I think it's all about being smart, investing in technology and these agile solutions and collaboration. I think that's what we've been discussing for the last almost hour now. So I'm just going to share my screen. I wanted to share with our viewers a quick note on where we're going from here. So we do have another session coming on in August, and that session will really connect to what we've talked about today. So it's a virtual short course, and it is about building agile mining supply chains in challenging times. We will be releasing more information about that as we go ahead. So keep your eyes open, follow us on social media, and also be on the lookout for more information on this series. This will become a full series on different topics in mining during these challenging times. together with our partners, Mine Africa and SEEK, the Schulich Executive Education Center. So make sure that you do connect with us, reach out to us if you do have any questions. And with that, I would like to thank our panelists for being so generous with your time and for sharing all of these insights with us. I thought this was a really, really enriching and enlightening conversation to have with all of you. And I'm looking forward to maybe doing this in person at one time when we all can travel and get together again. So
that would be nice.
Thank you.
Thank you.